What's up, everybody? This is Isaiah, one half of your homeless heroes. And we're here today with our fourth live stream. And today we're going to be talking about something that I think is important for most people to understand and realize, and that's that most Americans are one paycheck away from being homeless. So the topic for today is most Americans are one paycheck away from being homeless. And this really resonated with me specifically when we were doing our mission of giving a few months ago. There was a gentleman who we gave to. I think I told you guys the story before. And actually, the meal was intended, we had one last meal that was left. The meal was intended for some people that was inside of some tents and they were not there. And we saw him walking down the street. He waved us down. And then he said, he saw that we were giving. It was my last meal. I stopped him, gave it to him, and sat down. And he gave a disclaimer by saying, "I'm not a lazy guy. I'm not a bad guy. I just have some unfortunate luck." I would try to play the clips for you, but for whatever reason or another, dealing with the streaming service, they're still working out some kinks, or maybe it's on my end. I don't know. But we'll get it together soon enough. This is just our fourth live stream. Bear with us. But he sat down. It was a spaghetti dinner. I gave it to him in the water, and he was so grateful. He says, "Hey, listen, I just have some trouble, right now in my life. You get off the street. I'm having a difficult time." And welcome to everybody who just came into the room. And while I was talking to him, he said something that resonated with me. He says, "Hey, guess what? Most Americans are just one paycheck away from being homeless." And when he said that to me, I had never heard anybody say that before. Now, maybe you have. Maybe this is something that is common that you've heard on multiple occasions. But the truth of the matter is, it really stood out to me because I started to think about my circumstances and the things that I'm going through and the things that the people that's in my inner circle and my friends that are going through. And then I was like, this is an excellent point. And then he expounded on it a little bit. He says, "Hey, look, think about this. Like, whenever you get your money to your Chime or your bank account or whatever it is you get your money to, just consider the fact that, this is all you have and you're really not in the position for something to go wrong, and for you to be able to still maintain your quality of life and be able to bounce back." I'm summarizing, obviously, what he said, paraphrasing and summarizing. And I asked him what happened in his particular situation. He explained to me that he had gotten injured on the job and he was unable to work and he had hurt his back. And when he went to the hospital, they told him that he may need some surgery in order to be able to fully recover. But there is a possibility that in having the surgery, it will cause some level of, he may be paralyzed, And he says, well, you know, the option that I have is to be in pain or to be paralyzed. This isn't really a great set of options that you're laying out for me. And they said, well, these are your options. So they prescribed him to some pills, some medication, and he ended up getting addicted to fentanyl because that was the pain medication in which they had prescribed to him. But other than that, it was a situation where he had gotten injured at work that put him in the position and pitted him in the position to whereas he had become unable to work, and then eventually he became homeless. So it made me think. It made me do some thinking about my own situation, and I said, this is a great point. And I started researching, and it's scary to believe and understand, but most Americans are one paycheck away from being homeless. And we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to walk you through some numbers and some graphics. Now, this may not be your situation, but understand that many of us are just one accident, car accident, somebody getting cancer, somebody getting sick, you not being able to have paid time off of work. It can be a multitude, a plethora of things that puts you in this situation. And a lot of the individuals that's in the homeless community, if you sit down and you speak with them, they'll be happy to share with you that many of their situations, the genesis of the birth of this happened based on them not being in a position to be able to recover because something happened. It can be, this week's a great example. And again, I'm being transparent with you guys because we appreciate you guys, and we know that, we always appeal to the human side of people, which is one of the reasons why we give. I had some car problems this week. I had some significant car problems. And, as a result, it was just like, I can't afford to even get this taken care of and situated. But Maine, who is the other part of the Homeless Heroes, that you guys see. She's the one driving, and I'm the one that's getting out, giving out, and occasionally we both interact. The job that she has now revolves around driving around. So she does an Amazon job where she drives early in the morning, like Amazon Flex, and then after that she does Instacart. We only have the one car. So when the car goes down, and it's like, well, right now there's a driving job that she has. I work from home. I actually was laid off for like a month, so I'm just getting back to working. I'm like, we don't really have any savings. We're not in the position to be able to deal with this life emergency that's happened. So it really set us back a lot. And there's a lot of people that's in my circle, and maybe even if it's not you, that that if just one thing goes wrong, something arises or happens that just pops up, you're not in the position from a savings perspective to be able to handle that situation, and then on top of it all, be able to still maintain everything that you need to do. So this is the reason why we're talking about this today, that most Americans are one paycheck away from being homeless, because the truth of the matter is many of us are. So let's talk about this. Let's dive into some graphics real quick. Welcome to everybody who just came in. This says, here's the definition of living paycheck to paycheck. The term living paycheck, this is according to Forbes Advisor, as you can see, the term living paycheck to paycheck gets thrown around a lot when talking about money, but what does it mean? For the purposes of this survey, and this is the most recent survey, a 2023 survey, we're in 2024, so that is the most recent one, obviously until this year concludes. For the purpose of the survey, living paycheck to paycheck describes a financial scenario in which an individual or family's income barely covers essential living expenses like housing, utilities, groceries, and transportation. One misses a paycheck will put someone's living paycheck to paycheck in a difficult spot. Someone living paycheck to paycheck in a difficult spot. So this is what this essentially means. And we'll be popping back in and out of the graphic. So if you missed it, don't worry about it. I'm going to put it back up in a second. But I want to make sure that I'm transparent and we understand where we're coming from. This means that if you're in a situation where each one of the times that you get paid, you need that check to be able to cover the basic living expenses of your life. And if you didn't get that check, it will put you in your house or your car or your utilities in jeopardy. Then you're living paycheck to paycheck, which means that barring some accident or some series of unfortunate events, if something pops up and transpires, then you may very well end up spiraling. Not immediately, you won't lose the house immediately, you won't lose the car immediately, but you'll end up spiraling into a position to where you may end up as one of these individuals that are homeless and displaced. And it happens faster than you think. And some of these people, they don't have family to lean on. They don't have friends to lean on. They don't have these people that they can lean on that will take them in. So the streets is where they end up. When, let's see where we're at. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's difficult or impossible to save, let alone invest. This makes you even more vulnerable in times of emergency or loss of income. So how can I, in turn, and this kind of cut off a little bit, so excuse me for the graphic, but how can I save if I'm in the situation? And we'll get to some problem solving things and ways to avoid this a little bit later into the stream. But you hear people give generic advice all the time. People that's in better positions. Well, how did you end up in this position? Well, didn't you have any savings? Why did you save? When you're working from behind the eight ball, you're not in the position to be able to save. Even like homeless people, the people that you see that are homeless, and they say, well, how are you on the streets? Well, why aren't you doing this? Well, why aren't you working? We had a stream a couple weeks ago. It was why the homeless don't get a job. And I broke down how difficult it is in 2024 to be able to secure employment for a regular person like you and me who have home, have identification, social security card, can pass a background check, can pass a drug screening, all of this. But even if this person gets this job holding a sign, which pays between 10 to 13 bucks an hour, with inflation and everything else going through the roof, even if they get this job, they're working from so far behind the eight ball that how are they going to really realistically turn their life around to where they won't end back up in this position again? It's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to be able to do it. So when you start talking about savings and saving money and making sure that we're prepared, when you're working from so far behind, it's like you got to be kidding me. Like I can barely eat. And seriously, we've been in situations recently where it's like she makes money on that day, or I make money that day. That money is going to dinner. That's it. Whatever money we earn that day is going to dinner. There's no put this to the side, save here, save there. So it's a very real thing for most people. It says how many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. A 2023 survey conducted by payroll.org highlighted that 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 78%. That is a startling revelation, right? A 6% increase from the previous year. In other words, more than 3/4 of Americans struggle to save or invest after paying their monthly expenses. Wow. Did you hear that? 78% of people are living paycheck to paycheck, us being one of them, right? And I know that seems bizarre because we're the ones going out giving food to the homeless. So again, maybe this illuminates a little bit to some people our mission. It's just like we understand we're sympathists. We live in the same community as you, and we go through the same struggles as you go through. The difference is that a twist of fate put you in a position to where you were not able to recover, or you did not have the resources or the people or the family or the friends or did a borrow or loan or whatever, and then we did. But it's really just, it could be either way. It could be us just like that. There was a fire that we had in our community. I've been in where we live at. We live in some lofts in downtown Las Vegas. There was a fire about 6 months after we moved in here, and the fire had gotten so bad it was the worst fire in the past 25 years of Las Vegas history. Of the history of Las Vegas, the past 25 years, the worst fire, and it happened right in our community. We were first responders on the scene. We were able to run out and help a lot of people out of their homes. We were able to run out and save a lot of individuals, thank God. And for a brief period of time, the fire stopped right before it got to our house. But like literally, we were affected by it in the aspect that we were not able to stay in our homes because of the fact that everything was condemned because of the fire. I'm trying to see if I can find a picture of this. Let's see if I can find a picture of it. Yeah, but it was a bad situation. So this is the fire right here. This is a video of the fire, and that was from my phone. So this is me taking it, and this is another guy. He ran out, and this was right in our community, in our home, and it was bad, and it spread all the way throughout the community. In fact, those homes have not even been rebuilt. They're still working on rebuilding those right now. So this situation occurred, and for a day, I was homeless, and it was a blessing that I had family that said, hey, you're good. Come crash on our couch, come crash on our floor. We stayed there for a day because they had to clean everything up, and our house was the fire stopped right before it got to our house. Thank God. It was unaffected. So the next day I went in and it smelled like smoke and it was just terrible. We had to air it out, and we were able to kind of move back in and set up shop. Another fire occurred 6 months later that got even closer to the house, but we still were unaffected. But these things, they happen fast. And this statistic said that 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, meaning that if one thing happens, somebody gets sick, if somebody hurts their back, if somebody gets pregnant, or if somebody loses their job, if you get laid off for a brief spell, you are going to be in a very bad position. Similarly, a 2023 Forbes Advisor survey revealed that nearly 70% of respondents either identify as living paycheck to paycheck, it's cut off a little bit, or even more concerning, reported that their income doesn't even cover their standard expenses. Okay, so when you're looking at the homeless community, we like to think of them as being individuals who are druggies. They're addicts, and that's why they're out here when they mismanage their money, their time. They have some type of gambling addiction because it's Las Vegas, or drug addiction or something to that effect. But this Forbes survey, and we've got more statistics for you guys, so don't go anywhere, it shows us that as of just last year, the most recent survey that they've taken, that this isn't necessarily the case. There are people that are struggling for many reasons, and it's because of, obviously, there's inflation, the cost of living has grown exponentially, and it's just very difficult. In fact, some of the people that we help in the community, we'll have people that's following us in their cars or sleeping in their cars. In their car is the last possession that they have because they do have a job. They have a job. but they can't afford a house anymore. They got a month or two behind on their rent, or they got fired from one job and had to find another job. And when they found this job, they had to wait 2 weeks before they got paid, but they were living paycheck to paycheck. Didn't work out. Constable came, locked them out of their apartment, locked them out of their home, threw their stuff on the curb. Now they're homeless. Just like that. And they're living in their car. And they come up and they say, can you please have something to eat? Because they can't get anything to eat because they have to take the money from their job to be able to put in the gas tank to have gas because their car is their home now. So this thing goes far deeper than a lot of people give credit to. And this is the reason why compassion is important. And we have to be the change that we want to see, because everybody's not in that situation because of what you think. And then many of us are closer to that reality than we like to actually admit. Let's see. It says, which generation is most likely to live paycheck to paycheck? Certain generations struggle more than others when it comes to living paycheck to paycheck. For example, nearly half of baby boomer respondents who are nearing retirement or already retired say they're living paycheck to paycheck. That's a higher percentage than any other generation. Wow. So that means that the parents, the parents, the grandparents, the people who paved the way, those are the people whose worked, built a life, had children, had families. They're closer to being homeless than the newer wave and the newer generation of individuals in which we took care of and we've cared for. That's a very scary statistic. You work for all of these years so that you can reach retirement age, so you can sit back, you can settle in, and you can enjoy what it is that you worked for. And then the ultimate reward from that you get is once you reach that age, you're not able to even cover your basic bills and your basic, utilities and your basic necessities. That's very, very, very startling. It's very sad, to say the least. So it talks about these savings. Again, I don't know why this stuff's cut off like it is. I guess I got to get it together. But it talks about how much Americans have saved. And these are some graphs about individuals who's living paycheck to paycheck and how much they have saved. And again, some of it cut off. Here's another graphic right here that might be a little bit better for you guys. All right. And it talks about in savings, it says $1 to $500. And it shows the percentage, the respondents right here. Next, it shows respondents who are living paycheck to paycheck. And then it says those whose income does not cover standard expenses. So it's showing us a graph right now of individuals, how much most people have saved. Here was another statistic that I found interesting. They said that most Americans don't have $500 in their savings. They don't even have $500. I'm one of them. All right. This is a moment of transparency and me being honest. They said most Americans don't have $500 in savings. That's scary. So, for instance, 2 weeks ago, Maine's driving again. Her job is now driving primarily. She's in the car doing something one way or another. And she got a flat tire. Actually, the tire was tearing up and it was going flat. And she needed to get off the road so she can get a replacement. Now, remember what I just told you. We're living paycheck to paycheck. So I think this was the time I was laid off. I wasn't making any. I teach martial arts at home, doing like Zoom classes and private training. And then I do some freelance stuff online. I got many hats. I do a lot of different things. So other than teaching, I was laid off from the primary source of income that I was doing. And she needed to continue working because what she gets paid daily. So here's where we are. We don't have any savings. She has a flat tire, or the tire's going flat because it's the tire's torn up. So either she gets the tire fixed or she comes home and they can't finish her shift for the day. And she's working 2 different shifts, but we don't have any savings. So we have to find a way to get the tire fixed just so she can keep going. Now, this is a simple scenario. This is a tire replacement. This is $45, $50. What if this was something like there was an actual issue with the car, where the car wouldn't start, the car broke down or whatever? 2 weeks later, this did happen. Again, we don't have $500 in savings. So now the car's not starting at all. We find out that it's a battery issue. So we had the towing under our insurance. We're able to get towed. We found it's a battery issue. Good battery is $200, but they had a battery that was supposed to work, which was $100. This doesn't sound right. In 2024, batteries aren't $100. They assured us, this is it. This will work for your car. They put the battery in the car. We got to get her working. We need her on the road. I need her working. She needs to work. And then I got to get my stuff together, whatever. She's driving Amazon. She has a car full of packages, and then the car breaks down in this neighborhood and it will not start. She has to get the car towed. It gets towed back. We find out it's not the right battery. So I have to take the battery out. We don't have another vehicle, and walk it to AutoZone, which is by my house, thank God. And while I'm walking, I have my own little homeless experience because there's a big homeless community by our house, and they had a basket in front. So I'm carrying this heavy battery. I take the basket, the homeless basket, and I put the battery in the basket. I'm pushing the basket down the street. People are driving and look at me now because now I'm one of the homeless guys, the homeless hero. It's me. I'm pushing the battery, sweating down the street to the AutoZone, get the battery out, take it inside, and say, this isn't the right battery. They said, well, the one you need is $200. We don't have $500 in savings. We're one of those people in paycheck. So I have to borrow the extra $100, get the extra $100 so I can have the right battery, put it in the buggy, go back down the street, down Fremont, looking like a homeless person with the buggy, with the battery in it, install the battery so that the car can work because we can't afford to be without it. She drives the car. Everything's fine. The car stops again. She has to get it towed back to the house again. Now there's a bigger problem. So before it was just the tire, the $45 that we needed, or $50, we had to stretch to be able to get it. Then was the battery. All right, we get the battery changed. It was the wrong battery. We get another battery. And then now the car won't start again. So when you don't have savings, and I'm like, she's working and getting money on a daily basis, and we need that to eat. We're not even talking about lights, gas, rent, or anything else. Talk to a mechanic. They say it's probably the alternator or the starter. Well, how much is that? It's either $600 or $800, depending upon what is wrong. We don't have any savings. $600 or $800. So I did what any of you would do. I went to YouTube, the greatest thing ever, YouTube. And come to find out, it wasn't what they thought that it was. It was a fixable problem that I was able to look at YouTube. I spent $20. Again, no savings. So this is still a stretch. Getting a ratchet set and some materials, and I fixed it, and we've been on the road since. Thank God. So that's a testimony. But the reason I'm telling that story is that because most Americans don't have $500 saved up, we're not in the position to be able to deal with any of these situations should they actually arise. You may be unemployed just like that, and then in this situation. All right, so let's move up to a different graphic here, and it talks about why many Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Again, it cuts off because the screen's only so big. And it talks about high monthly bills, and it gives you all the Gen Z, the millennials, the Gen X, and the baby boomers, how many of these individuals are struggling because of this. Lack of budgeting and financial planning. That's another one that's right up there. Many of us don't budget, or we don't plan financially because we don't have the extra income or the cushion to be able to sit back and say, this is where this money, I'm going to allocate this money here. We're going to keep this set aside for this just in case. We don't have that flexibility. Low income. Okay. Let me drop a graphic on you for free. And I'm not a business savvy professional individual by any stretch of means of the imagination, but I want to drop something in so that it can make sense to you. We're hearing about this fast food industry and them getting additional money, or they're getting raises and they're making more money than they did before. Remember that fight where many of the states were looking at getting the minimum wage for them to be $15 an hour. And then you had a big group of individuals that pushed that. Now, I'm not political. I don't advance an opinion or a vote on any side of it, and I don't look at myself as being the savvy person. But what I will say is this. When we grew up in my generation, it was looked at as the fast food industry being the lower tier chain of jobs. In other words, your parents would threaten you with working at McDonald's. You better go to school and graduate, or you might have to work at McDonald's. It was a bad job. It was the way that they injected fear into you back then to do better because they wanted you to get a better job. Because at that time, and I'm not saying anything bad about fast food workers or anything at all, but I'll get to the point in a second. At that time, they were getting paid so little, and they were looked upon. I worked at KFC when I was younger, you know what I mean? And I remember how I was treated when I was a teenager as well. I didn't like the feeling. It's customer service, and it was the lower form of customer service, or at least viewed as that in people's eyes. So with that said, once that starts to rise up, if it's considered the lowest tier of employment, a lower tier of employment, what happens is the rest of the world looks at it and says, okay, the lowest common denominator, the lowest job tier is now making this much money, which means that we can now afford to charge this much for everything else. So if you're in that middle class area where you're not working at like a restaurant, but you're not working at a Fortune 500 company as a CEO, or one of these big jobs pulling in 6 figures a year, and you didn't get a promotion, this directly affects you. The person that worked at the fast food industry, they're happy because they got bumped up from 10 to 15 bucks, or from 13 to 15 bucks, right? All right, that's great for them. They feel great. It's fantastic. But if you are already making a certain amount of money and now gas goes up, or bread goes up, or eggs goes up, milk goes up, because of the fact that these people are making more money, it hurts you, it hurts me. We didn't get a raise, nothing changed in our lifestyle. So this is why it became an issue, or becomes an issue. And we're talking about low income, because if your income didn't raise, even though the lower tier employments did raise, then everybody else, gas and everything else shoots up, and then it affects you and I. The increase in the cost of living, the same thing that we just talked about a second ago. I can charge more for rent now because of the fact that the people at McDonald's or Cane's or In-N-Out are making $18 an hour. $18 an hour, some of them are making. But the person that was making $13 an hour, their union didn't fight for them, and they didn't get any increase in money. So now they have to pay higher fees because everybody else leapfrogged over them, but they did not move up at all. So this is where they get hurt. Social pressures. This means basically you got your homies that want to go out, they want to drink, they want to smoke, they want to hang out, they want to go out to dinner, they want to do these things, and you don't want to feel like a wet blanket, so you do it anyway, even though you really can't afford to do so. Financially supporting family members is another one. And again, I know it's cut off a little bit because of the spacing that's here. Yeah, but that's, again, I was just talking to, I had some friends came over yesterday, somehow or another, my house turned to the Party Central accidentally. And people came over and we were talking, and there was a situation where she had one of her family members that was kind of staying with her, and things kind of went awry. And, it took a toll on them financially because they're living paycheck to paycheck too. See, that's another thing. It's interesting how we always say birds of a feather, right? How it's not just you, but it's like everybody, maybe your friends, your family, everybody that are all under that same umbrella of living paycheck to paycheck. And it just, again, you're just one calamity away from being on the streets. And then debt, as if things aren't bad enough as it is, we are also talking about being in debt also. And the debt comes from you having to make decisions. What decision you have to make? Do I want to pay that credit card bill off, or do I want to be able to have my lights on? Do I want to be able to, pay Visa, MasterCard, or car note, or do I want to be able to take, not car note, but Visa or MasterCard, or be able to pay on car note? All of these things are things that attribute towards that debt that we're talking about. And when you're having to make decisions about just basic living conditions and being able to find ways to be able to survive and to eat, you're going to always choose that over being able to pay a bill for sure. All right. Let's see. So we got another graphic, I believe, here. Let's see if it uploads. Yeah, but no. So we now know many of us. Yeah, it's not uploading. That's okay. So we now know that many of us are talking about how to avoid living paycheck to paycheck. But I mean, it's a suggestion. It's probably why it's not loading, because it's not realistic. Because if we're in this situation here, it talks about how many of us are not able to save. It talks about how many of us are not able to invest. So the people that you see, just to kind of, bring my point around, a lot of people ask us why we do what we do. And I'll have a different thing for that probably. We'll have a different topic for that maybe in a week or two. But just to kind of give you a heads up, it's because I can clearly see how easily it is for us to be in these particular positions ourselves. I showed you guys, many of you guys who were here, I showed you this fire that happened in our community that affected us, and this just happened out of nowhere. This was us briefly. We looked at the graphic where we talked about the definition of living paycheck to paycheck and how that happens and why that happens. This was us and this is us. So when we go out into the community, we help folks, we realize that it can be us. A twist of fate, it can be us, and we will want somebody to show us that kindness. But make no mistake about it, when you look down on people, or some of us look at people and we pass people up, we drive past people, we excoriate them by saying things like, why don't they just get a job? Like, why should I help them? They're young enough to go out and work. I got to get up and go to work every day. Why would I give my money? Why would I give food? Why would I give time to them? These are individuals who not necessarily in the situation that they're in because of the fact that they were addicts. They're not necessarily in the situation they're in because they were thieves. They're not necessarily in the situation they're in because they're bad people. Some of these individuals were living paycheck to paycheck, just like you, just like me, if that doesn't apply to you, and something happened. Somebody got cancer. Somebody broke their leg. Somebody got their back injured. Somebody fell. Maine fell yesterday while she was out doing Amazon. She fell. She made a joke. She looked at somebody's brain cam. She says, I guess I'm going to be on TikTok now, huh? That's what people do. They go to their ring cams, they look at it, somebody falls or something, they put it all over social media. She says, I guess I'm getting ready to be famous, right? But somebody falls. That fall could have went bad. It could have been disastrous. And she wouldn't have been able to get up and get in the car and continue her route or continue working. Or I just told you guys a story about how our vehicle went down multiple times in the 7 to 10-day period. And I do want you to understand that some of that time she wasn't able to work. And it hurt us exponentially. I had to call and get extensions with Southwest Energy. With NV Energy, with Southwest Gas. I had to call and beg and speak to supervisors for extensions and things like that. These things spiral out of control really fast. And you can end up in these situations. And I've talked to people on countless occasions who have expressed to me that this is how they've gotten where they are. And they reminded me and educated me in that time that most Americans are one paycheck away from being homeless. This statistic said that 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And that's a 6% increase from the previous year. In other words, more than 3/4, that's 3 out of 4 people are struggling to save or invest after paying their monthly expenses. Okay? So we've already summed this up. We get it now. And I encourage each and every one of us to, number one, look on the homeless individuals and people in the homeless communities with a little bit more compassion than you probably did before. Because now that we think about it, we put it into perspective, we realize that there's not a great deal of separation between them and us. Okay? Number two, look at your finances. And remember what I said earlier about the statistic about most people don't have $500 in savings. Let's work on doing something about that. Now, again, I know it sounds backwards hypocritical because I just said if you live paycheck to paycheck and you owe, you don't have any time to invest or save. But find little ways to do so. Let me show you this neat little thing that we got on social media that we use. We've seen this on TikTok, I believe it was, and we got one of these. It's a 100 envelope savings challenge. And what you do is you open it up. Look, it's empty now because we needed to get the tires fixed and everything in the car, so it's empty. We had to get the battery and stuff. There was money in there like 2 weeks ago, but it has numbers on each one of the things, 1, and then it has 2 and 3, and that's how many dollars you put in there. And the objective is to fill the book up till it gets to 100. At the end, if you fill the book up, you make a little notch, each time that you do one, and you fill that book up. I think Maine got this. She saw it on TikTok and she got it. And we were very disciplined. And it's because the objective is you want to save for the whole year. And then at the end of the year, you can, you can go on vacation. You can have it for Christmas to do your Christmas shopping or whatever. We were old school before we got this book. We were doing envelopes. And what you can do is you can get envelopes or envelopes, however you say it. And you get 52 envelopes, writing the numbers 1 all the way through 52 on it. And at the end of each week, when you get your pay, you take that number that's on that envelope. So if it's 1, you put $1 in it, you seal it, and you put it away. That's what we were doing before. On week 2, you put $2 in there, all the way up to 52. And then by the end of the year, I think you'd end up having like $1,300 or $1,500 or something like that if you added all of those dollars together. But it was great because when we did fall on hard times, we had an emergency. Even though we were saving this for vacation or wedding or whatever the case is, we were able to go to this, and you have to forget about it. So you got to forget your habit, and we were able to say, hey, we need a tire fix, we need a battery, we need. All right, but we have to find ways to make sure that we're not in this position or we're not in this situation, and make sure that we have some savings set aside so that we don't end up in this situation. I want you guys to kind of drop in the comments as well, maybe situations that's happened with you, things that you've noticed and that you've understood to be problems, as relates to being able to invest, as relates to being able to save, and as relates to maybe you have a story about what happened or what transpired where you are living paycheck to paycheck and it affected you significantly. And then we'll make sure that we discuss those things as well moving forward. So different things, challenges, problems that's leading to this we talked about. We said that we're talking about there's rising living costs and cost of living. When I moved out here to Las Vegas, I moved here in 2016, on Labor Day of 2016. The apartment that I stayed in was a 2-bedroom apartment. It was me and my family. We moved in, and it was about $1,000 to $1,050 a month. So $1,000 to $1,050, cheaper than the rent that I was paying in Detroit for a house that I had, which was about $1,300. Now those same apartments, for the same apartment that I stayed in, is about $1,800. I think it is, because my son, when he moved out, he tried to go and move in those apartments himself, and I think he said it's about $1,800. So that means that in 7 years' time, 7.5 years, it rose $100 in rent each year that I stayed here. Each year, $100. So again, if you didn't get a raise and you're making the same amount of money, if you were struggling paying $1,050, how are you gonna pay $1,800 now? You still have your car note, you still have your insurance. That is big on that. If your insurance lapses for a day, man, you're in trouble. Your insurance company will drop you. You fool around, get a ticket. I mean, it's bad news out here. And it's not like it is in Detroit with rent either. In Detroit, you can fall a couple months behind with your rent and your home, and landlords will work with you. This is very popular real estate out here. We have a lot of growth and development. It's a very big tourism state, and there's a lot of people that's moving from California because the cost of living is shooting up so much in California that these people are selling their homes. They're coming here. They're getting homes comparable to what they had, but for far cheaper. So real estate is it's hot, man. So they're like, if you're a couple of days late, they can file for something called a 7-day notice. Go to the court. The court already says, hey, listen, you pay this amount within 7 days, or after that, then you have to get out. You don't pay within 7 days, the constable comes out, and they'll tell you that you have this day to get your stuff out. They put a lock on your doors and they kick you out. So this means that if you have a calamity or a series of unfortunate events or situation that transpires, within 3 weeks, you will be homeless. I've been 2 or 3 months behind in rent before and got caught up back when I lived in Detroit. But here, you got a total of 3 weeks, if you're lucky, before they lock you out and throw your stuff out on the curb. That's it. So if you get paid bi-weekly, this means that if you miss one check, you are in trouble. You won't even be able to be there long enough to even get another check to pull you out of the situation that you're in. So the cost of living is up, and this is one of the biggest problems that a lot of individuals are having as well, in addition to the fact that we just don't have savings. So again, we understand it now. I implore you guys to be compassionate towards the homeless community because you understand this. Work on ways to be able to save money and have savings set aside for an emergency. All right. And obviously, we want to make sure that we give what we'd hope to receive from an energy perspective, in our life, in the world. In other words, hey, I've had to call people and say, hey, listen, I need a place to sleep tonight. I need, to borrow some money until I get my check. I'm laid off. I've developed a nice close-knit circle of people, family or friends, to whereas we can lean on one another in these situations. Because the biggest question you ask yourself is, how did this person, even if they are one paycheck away from being homeless, even if they got injured, even if they got fired, even if they got hurt, even if they're on drugs, how do they not have somebody to take them in? Right? That's a question we have. Like, we feel like we'll never be in a situation because we're like, listen, I got my mother. My mother passed away in 2019. I got my grandmother. My grandmother passed away 2 years ago. I got my auntie. My auntie died before my mother. I got my uncle. My uncle's 70 years old, and he's in failing health. I got my friends. We think we have somebody, and in many cases we do, to where we can lean on. We'll have that person, and then we'll say we'll never be in this situation. Some of these people are out here and they have nobody. They either are not from here, they moved here. Some of these people's family have passed away. Some of these people are addicts, maybe, and as a result, they've scared people away. And some of these people, they don't have anybody, or they're too proud to ask. So let's put ourselves in a position ourselves in a way to where we're able to be the individuals that we would want someone to be to us and for us. I want to have a giving and a kind nature and spirit because I know that someday I'm going to have to ask. I want to go out and help other individuals because I know that I'm one paycheck away from being homeless. And then consider that when you see homeless individuals, consider that when you're making your financial plans, your budgets, or finding ways to save, and just keep that in the forefront of your mind that, if we're being honest, many of us are living paycheck to paycheck, and most Americans are just one paycheck away from being homeless. I thank you guys for rocking with me, staying with me, hanging with me, listening to this. I like to kind of be transparent because I want you guys to understand that despite the fact that we're out here doing these things, we're not in any better position than many individuals. And that's just the reason why you hear us use that motto, it doesn't take much, because it doesn't take much to show kindness. It's not because we're means. It's not because we have resources. It's not because we have funding that we do these things. We do it because we know that there's a need, and we want to be the change that we want to see, right? And we step in, we fulfill that need because we know the simple twist of fate, if we're being honest, it could be us. Thanks again. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. We're here every week doing this. All right. So thank you guys for rocking with us for these streams. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. All right. So guys, remember the saying, you know how it goes. It doesn't take much. Peace, guys. Thank you. God bless.